there, and said, where's the place you bet? And they said, oh, that saloon over there, you'll put your bets. We want to put $500 a piece on Betty, that McCullough pony. I said, well, you'll never beat the McCullough pony, but go ahead and put your bets if you want. So they was sitting there, they'd never even tasted beer probably before, but they all tried to sip one right there. And right next to the table next to him, this dude, boy, he was all slicked out. He had a silk cowboy hat even, silk on there. And his horse outside had this saddle all engraved, even his name on it and everything. And he introduced himself, and he said, you guys wasted your money. You wasted your money. You waste your money on that. You know who this guy was? Anybody know who it was? Somebody knows who that guy was. Huh? Leroy Parker. Leroy Parker. And he found out he's about the same age as Matt. And oh, by the way, Matt in the meantime had changed his name. Somebody asked one of the employers, says, well, what's your name? And he says, Matt Warner. And that's when he changed his own name. Where he come up with it? He says, I don't even remember how I even come up with that name. So Leroy was telling me he raced all over, and he says, I got bets on there. He said, but you're going to lose. And Matt says, well, you want to make a side bet? Yeah, I want to make a side bet. And he says, I'll tell you what. He says, I've lost a lot of my money. He says, but I got that fancy saddle. I got that horse. I got a little money in my pocket. I'll bet you double or nothing. Your Betty can't beat the McCullough pony. Matt says, you're on, bud. You're on. So anyway, they come to the lane. Oh, he says, they said, now you got a chance to have a judge. Every horse owner can have one judge to make sure, because they didn't have the things we got nowadays, is win by a half a nose, you know. Everybody had to get out there and look and see how far they won by, because that's how they bet. And so he said, well, he said, my name's Leroy. He said, yes, I'll be your judge also. So they run the race, and boy, old Betty, 3 races in a row, she took first place. Boy, she really did good. Well, anyway, so they said, wow, that's pretty good to do all that. So they was walking around with Leroy, and they walking by this bank, and they looked in the windows there, and they said, man, you see them stacks of money and all these miners bringing it in there? There's stacks of money all over. They hadn't even got enough tellers to put it away. You know, we ought to rob that place. And Leroy said, well, I've rustled a few cattle. And I said, I kind of figured you must have did something. You didn't look that clean cut. So anyway, they decided, let's do it right at noon. Because I've noticed, right at noon, there's only one teller, and they usually lock the door after a few minutes. We can knock on the door, go in, like we want to deposit some money in there. So they did. They walked up there, and they said, let's clean up like you did, Leroy. So show us how to buy clothes, Leroy. So he took them in, they dolled them all up, and they even bought some fancy silver thing that goes over their hoofs, so they look really smart when their horses were going down the road there. And so anyway, they walked into the bank, and the guy locked the door behind him. He said, how can I help you, boys? And Matt says, well, you can do exactly as I say. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He says, what I want you to do is take all these big bags you got, and I want you to put in paper money, nothing less than 100. Now, them days, and I got samples of them over there, they made $500 bills and $1,000 bills then even. So we want all of them. Well, they filled up about 4 big giant bags full of there. And he says, and I want you to take all silver in one bag, no small stuff, and all gold, no small stuff, and put it in these other bags. So the guy went to it, and he'd do it, and they got it all there, and they got all these big bags of things, and bags of silver, and Matt went to pick one up and said, gosh darn, I can't hardly pick that up. How am I going to get this on the horse? Well, we got to decide soon. Somebody's going to want to come in this bank. They want to come in this bank here. He says, okay, We'll take all the bills and we'll stuff them in our shirt, each other's shirts. By the way, I had Tom McCarty out holding the horses. He's the third guy involved in this hearing here. It was Matt's brother-in-law. And so they were stuffing all these bills in their shirts. They was all puffed up like a jack-o'-lantern. And then all the other bills, they made sure that they were all large amounts of coins there. And they said, okay, we can go outside now. So they started to walk outside carrying all this stuff. And Tom McCarty looked at him and said, what's wrong, you guys? You have a feast in there? You're all puffed up. Money, man, money. So anyway, they got on their horses and somebody says, hi, Roy. Hi, Matt. They said, we know you from the race. You took our money. And he said, oh, no. They know us already. So they galloped off. Mancos, Colorado. Matt had a little ranch up there. So it was 35 miles, and they made it in an hour and a half up there. That was some sort of a record. They made it up there to that Mancos ranch. Of course, he had his little race pony there, too. And they jumped off, and they see the cloud here of the dust of people coming in there. The posse was after him. Oh, crap, we can't stay here. So he told his jockey and his two buddies that worked for him on his own ranch there, they said, the ranch is yours, take care of it. If we ever come back, we'll divvy up something. But right now, we're headed out. So they headed out of there, and this is what they call the 1,000-mile race. I mean, every place they